So I chose to do my two topics on life and death, and the first artwork is by Alda Hirschel, and he was born January 31st, 1860, and died April 7th, 1933, and his country of origin is Hungarian. And the artwork's name is, I'm going to butcher this name, but I think it's Hal Husharos at the end of the war. And it was painted in 1888 on oil canvas, and it is 139.7 centimeters by 128.6 centimeters, and it is currently shown in the National Gallery of Canada. The second artwork is by Emile Bernard, and he was born in April 28, 1886, and he died April 16, 1941. And then he was born in France, or his country of origin is France, and he painted the Death of the Horseman, or Bartimart Crying, and he painted this in 1892. The medium was hand-colored zincology and watercolors, and then the painting was 48.5 centimeters by 36.2 centimeters, and right now it's being displayed in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. The first artwork by Aldous Hirschel, the historical culture and context was that the author had a deep engagement in the theme of mortality, and this art piece was from a Jewish folktale, and he also had physiological injuries. And then the intent and background was he wanted to express his feelings of emotional and spiritual truth. And then the social and political or cultural significance. For the angel, it symbolized hope, and then for the devil figure that was in the painting was a spectator. And then this painting shows what happens back then and like the importance in religion. Yeah. Then there's the second artwork by Emile Bernard, and then the historical context for this painting. This guy talked about a poem. Well, his painting is about a poem, and it's about the Aristotle's epic poem and the sorrow and loyalty and tragedy of it. And then the artist's intent and background was he wanted to depict the romanticy of the death of this king, Bartimart, and it just shows the love that they had between them. Then the social, political, or cultural significance was mostly the social importance, because he wanted to portray the picture to help other people understand what the poem was representing. The first paintings, next there's the first painting's elements and principles, and the blue in this painting represents sadness, then the black and red represent the evil, and then the white, these are the colors, the white represents glory and hope. And then this painting also has lines in many shapes, as well as many values and sad tones. Then there's the short observation, describe how the visual elements and principles help communicate the idea, concept, or feeling of the artwork. So the angel represents hope, like I said, hope and glory plus forgiveness, and then the old man represents old age and end. And then there is the crows that represents death, and the skeleton represents death, and then there's the glacier that represents cold and sad. And then there's the body, like the main picture, which represents death and bitterness and cold. That's basically it for that. Then there's the second artwork, and then its elements and principles of design is color, to like draw the viewer in using the different tones and colors. And then there is the lines, which has like a lot of black lines on it due to the Zincography of the artwork. And then there's a lot of values and contrasts in the different colors put together. And then there's her facial expressions and his facial expressions, which her facial expressions represent sadness, and then his is more like gone and dead, basically. And then there's the short observation and visual elements that communicate the idea, feeling, or the feeling in the artwork. And of course, her facial expressions represent the sadness. And then there is his facial expression. And then the pink represents love and joy that they had before. And then the green represents the hope of new life, basically, and like the peace to her soul. And then their blue clothing would represent sadness in a way. The one that I think best represented the theme is probably the one by Herschel. And I think this one represents the theme better just because it shows life and death, because the angel shows like heaven and life, and then the like cross with like the skeleton kind of looking thing shows death, as well as the old man shows like death. And then there's like her on earth dead in like the main theme, and then like the cold and like the bitterness of death. So I think that represents it more than the other one, which is just him in her arms. Like it more shows like after death, like his death and how it affects her, rather than death and life. And then, yeah. So based on my experiences, values, and background, I see the first painting as like a great representation as like religion, and how like everybody gets resurrected and repents for their sins, and like how like if you stay focused on the Lord, you'll be able to move. You'll be able to like do good. And then the other one, from my thinking perspective, makes me think of like death and how everybody experiences trials, and how no matter what happens, you just have to look for hope and just find a way to gain peace from the experience. That's basically it. I'm just gonna have my citations up here, and yeah, cool.